On today's episode of Locked On MLB, your pal Sully, that's me, I am going to be examining a double standard that's really confusing me.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball here on the number one sports podcasting network. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. The best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube channel. If you're listening every day, then make sure you leave a hashtag that says Everyday Sully, and also you may want to join the Everydayers Club. But I'll get to that in just a little bit. Let's also quickly do the trivia question. Trivia question was, we were talking about the late, great Mickey Lolich, who homered for the Cardinals' only run in their Game 7 1968 World Series loss. And a couple of you longtime Tiger and Cardinal fans got that one right. So here's one I'll read from Harry Adelman, 9922. It was third baseman Mike Shannon who hit the home run against Mickey Lolich for the Cardinals' only run in Game 7. And it was with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, by the way. Mike Shannon obviously went on to have a wonderful, the late Mike Shannon went on to have a wonderful career as a broadcaster. And by the way, Mickey Lolich is going to be in the upcoming In Memoriam. I'm starting to work on it right now, and it's going to be coming out just before the opening day. And opening day is around, I think it's the 25th day of March. So there's going to be some big ones on there. Going to be some real big ones, and Lolich will certainly be on there, and Dave Parker is going to be on there. Ryan Sandberg is going to be on there. A lot of big ones. A lot of big ones are going to be on there. Hall of Famers are in there too. How about that as my transition? Not a lot of big trades or anything were made over the last few days. The Yankees are getting the band back together as they brought in Paul Goldschmidt. I was hoping Goldschmidt would sign with the Arizona Diamondbacks, but there you go. With this day where there's still some free agents still out there floating around, I've teased this episode, and then there was a flurry of trades and free agent signings the last couple of days that took precedent over. So I want to get this off my chest. I want to, first of all, preface everything by saying Carlos Beltran is in the Hall of Fame, and I have no problem with Carlos Beltran being in the Hall of Fame. And that's kind of how I phrase things. Whether or not I would necessarily have voted for Beltran, I probably would have if I had a vote. I know he's on the ballot for 4 years. He had a wonderful career. And we judge things differently. It used to be, did they hit the 3,000 hits? Did they get the 500 home runs? Well, he got 2,700 hits. He got his 400 some on home runs, lifetime OPS of 837, terrific all-around player. Played for 19 plus years, had great longevity, and there you go. Played for several different clubs, and he's going to have a Mets hat on his Hall of Fame plaque. I have zero issues with Carlos Beltran in the Hall of Fame. If you go to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth, they have a thing where they say most similar players, and you have players like Andre Dawson and Billy Williams and Al Kaline and Tony Perez and Dave Winfield and Dave Parker and Chipper Jones, all Hall of Famers. You also have players like Luis Gonzalez and Gary Sheffield, who have interesting Hall of Fame cases, and Dwight Evans, who I believe belongs to the Hall of Fame. But, certainly a Hall of Fame worthy career if you're bringing up names like Al Kaline and Tony Perez and Dave Parker and Chipper Jones and everything like that. And he, of course, was very briefly the manager of the New York Mets. I have tied Carlos Beltran in number of games managed for the New York Mets because he was forced to resign And I'm very careful about how I phrase that. He was the manager, and then the controversy around the 27 World Series was stirring, and he was part of it. And no player, because of how they were protected by the Players Association, could be punished. But Carlos Beltran, who had just retired, took the brunt, and he realized that he had to resign from the manager of the Mets. Otherwise, there was the winds that were going to be blowing into Queens were gigantic. So he is elected to the Hall of Fame, despite having a cheating scandal attached to him, a cheating scandal of a World Series, which was one of the closest World Series we've had in a long time. And it was also one where the cheating was so egregious. Say for one game, the Astros hit the tar out of every pitcher that they faced, clobbering pitchers like CC Sabathia, like Clayton Kershaw, like Chris Sale, just beating them like a drum or like a trash can. Now, but he was elected to the Hall of Fame because I guess people were like, all right, we're going to put that behind us. We're going to put that behind us. Also on the ballot for the fifth time was Alex Rodriguez. Let's take a look at some of the players that he's similar to, shall we? According to BaseballReference.com, single greatest website in the history of planet Earth. Similar batters: Willie Mays, Albert Pujols, Ken Griffey Jr., Frank Robinson, Barry Bonds, Henry Aaron, Rafael Palmeiro, Mel Ott, Miguel Cabrera, and Dave Winfield. All not just Hall of Famers, but inner circle Hall of Famers, like all-time greats. Not just, oh, you know what, analyzing the numbers, you're certainly a quality, but no. All-time players. Absolute all-time players. And if you take a look at, obviously, if you look at his stats, fifth most home runs in the history of baseball, seventh most total bases, eighth most runs scored. You like WAR? I don't know how WAR is calculated, neither do you, but 16th highest career WAR, 12th highest amongst position players. And just 3,115 hits. Mind-boggling stats. And say it with me, he is the greatest third baseman in the history of the New York Yankees. He carried the New York Yankees to the postseason in 2005 and 2007, his two MVP years with the New York Yankees. They don't make the postseason without him. And post his first go-around with PE, what's the word I'm looking for? PD cloud over his head, basically led the Yankees to the 2009 World Series title. Yes, he had some bad postseasons with the Yankees, but they don't win that 2009 World Series without him. And how would Yankee fans be if they were looking at no World Series titles since 2000 and the Red Sox beating them in 2004 being the demarcation of the end of their title years? Probably wouldn't like that. I'm going out on a limb and saying that. And yes, A-Rod did PEDs, but did PEDs take him from being an average player to an inner circle Hall of Famer? Even if we reduce it, say, okay, maybe his numbers would not have been that as great as they were with the PEDs if they reduced them to the Billy Williams level, the Andre Dawson level, hell, the Carlos Beltran level. We're still talking about a Hall of Famer, even if we grade a little bit on a curve. But A-Rod still didn't get in the Hall of Fame after 5 ballots. He was only on 40% of the ballots the last time. And I'm going to ask this question. And part 2 of this podcast is all about this question. Why are the sins of Alex Rodriguez unforgivable while the cheating of Carlos Beltran, they were given a pass? Barely mentioned. I need someone to explain this to me because none of this comes within 1,000 miles of making sense. Hey, let's hear from our good friends over at Indeed. Hey, are you hiring? Is that what you're up to these days? Hiring isn't just about finding someone who's willing to take the job. There's lots of people willing to take the job. I'll take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs, that's the move. Because instead of hoping the right person just stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certification, and location. And if you're hiring and if you just don't want someone who can help, you want someone who has the real experience who can just jump right in. And that's what's really, really great about Indeed. You get specific and you target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less money, less time and energy just sorting through all those mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. So here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you here, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Hey, by the way, I just want to have everyone really, really, really consider joining the Everydayer Club. You get ad-free audio of the Locked On MLB show. It's similar to having like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you get to the Everydayer Club Discord. I interact with a lot of people there. It's a lot of fun. Check us out at lockedonmlb.supercast.com. And thanks so much for making us, first of all, your first listen and the #1 sports podcast network. All right, let's really break this down for a second. The reasons against A-Rod, it really just sort of, it hit me when I'm looking at Carlos Beltran in. Again, this is not about me saying Beltran does not belong in. And this is not about me saying that, oh, I have no problem with people who are cheating in the Hall of Fame. But at some point, you got to realize there's a precedent that's been set. It's really kind of strange that the Hall of Fame is trying to tell the story of baseball and reward the greatness in baseball and leaving out some really, really big people along the way. But I see Beltran, who, again, had a Hall of Fame worthy career, especially when you start comparing to like the Billy Williams and Andre Dawson and all that. And again, Billy Williams belongs to the Hall of Fame. Andre Dawson belongs to the Hall of Fame. This is not about who I don't want. The people I want out. It's about some of the people I want in. But all the things that people say against Alex Rodriguez, to me, shows there's always been something borderline pathological in our collective hatred of A-Rod. Now, and I got to say, in full disclosure, one of my favorite teams are the Seattle Mariners, and A-Rod first emerged with the Mariners, and the A-Rod and Griffey could have worked it out, and the Mariners have worked it out. That would have been one of the greatest 1-2 punches in the history of baseball, and for a couple of years it was. 96, 97, 98, when they had A-Rod and Griffey together, both putting up MVP caliber numbers. It was a sight to see. But when he signed the big contract with the Rangers, there's a lot of people who were like, oh, he's so greedy. He's so greedy. Yeah, well, so would you be. I mean, like, good for him for signing the contract. And then, of course, he manipulated the trade. First tried to be traded to Boston and then wound up being traded to the New York Yankees. Full disclosure, I'm a native New Englander and rooted super hard for those teams in the mid-2000s. And the Red Sox-Yankee rivalry was at a fever pitch. No reference to that movie intended. And I booed A-Rod hard. And when he would fail in the playoffs like he did a bunch of those years, I laughed and laughed and laughed. But that's because I'm a native New Englander and we're all jerks. We're descended from jerks. Read the history of the Puritans. They're a bunch of jerks. That's why the whole culture there is about being kind of nasty. Then look who landed at Plymouth Rock, okay? It wasn't the nice people. They were a bunch of jerks. And they were uptight and thought they were better than everyone. Sound familiar? Still that way. Have a fun Super Bowl, everyone. So this isn't about me being a huge A-Rod fan. You notice A-Rod's not in the background of my studio here. Quite the opposite. But it's funny, as someone who was rooting for Boston during that whole time, the anger that I saw that Yankee fans had towards A-Rod seemed bizarre to me, especially because he was carrying them to the postseason in several years. Yes, he whiffed in the postseason a bunch of times, but I always felt when he won the World Series for them in 2009, I thought that was his John Elway moment. That there he dotted every I, he crossed every T, and there's no way you can boo him now. And 11 months later, the Yankee fans were booing him like crazy as he was wetting the bed against Texas. And when he was suspended for the year and a half, when he was put on double secret probation by Dean Wormer, that there were Yankee fans saying, "Oh my God, just cut him, just cut him, just cut the best third baseman in Yankee history." The hatred was kind of pathological. And that hatred existed there before his PED use was discovered. So why is he not in the Hall of Fame? He's a cheater. Yeah. So is Beltran. So is Gaylord Perry. We knew that. They made a joke about it with Gaylord Perry. So is Whitey Ford. There's a lot of people in the Hall of Fame who cheated. So I don't, it's not the cheating aspect. But I just got a very interesting comment from Sully, not Sully, that's me, that said, "You know the answers before you even asked. It's two separate things, as you know." Wrong, Sully. I don't know the answer before I ask this, and I don't see this as two separate things. But even though our names are similar, that U and the O, well, that shows a big, big difference. Is it because he's a PED user? Well, so is Pudge Rodriguez. So is David Ortiz. They're in the Hall of Fame, and deservedly so. I don't want a Hall of Fame without Pudge Rodriguez, and I don't want a Hall of Fame without David Ortiz. And also, there's a few that are incredibly. I have no compunction of just listing the facts about Jeff Bagwell. I've done it before. Skinny kid, no power in the Red Sox organization, traded to Houston, friends with Ken Caminiti, and suddenly becomes an angry Bruce Banner and a Hall of Fame slugger, and retired just around the time testing started. Those are just the facts, and I'll leave them there. You can't sue me for defamation. File that under, come on. And you know what? You should grade on a curve. There are certain players who, yes, we know did PEDs, but I think should be in the freaking Hall of Fame. I think Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't even understand that debate. Clemens, C. Bonds. A-Rod, C. Clemens. None of that makes sense to me. And no, I don't know before I ask. There's a reason why I'm devoting this whole thing, because I want to get some answers here. So it's not because he's a cheater, and it's not because of PEDs. Okay. Is it because, he's a jerk? Oh my God, he's a jerk. There's some real jerks in the Hall of Fame right now. Read some of the interviews with Steve Carlton. Actually, don't. Reading those interviews, your expression will be like you just saw the video from The Ring. Read some of the things that Chipper Jones says. Holy cow. But you know what? Steve Carlton belongs to the Hall of Fame. Chipper Jones belongs in the Hall of Fame. He was kind of a phony. A-Rod was kind of a phony. So was Reggie Jackson. There are a bunch of phonies in the Hall of Fame. There's a bunch of people who are Sorry, I nearly choked on my own spit there. Doing it live. A lot of people are disingenuous in the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of sincerity. I'm sure there's some terrible people in there. And people who have done a lot worse than take PEDs. Go read the police report from Bobby Cox's wife. I'll just leave that there. So it's not, I'm not putting it, he's a phony guy. Yeah. He is greedy. He was greedy. Yeah. And so would you be, and so would I be. And who cares? Yes, he was the best player in baseball, and he made the most money. So I really need. Now, Sully thinks I know the answer. Now, maybe, Sensei, you're right. Maybe somewhere deep in my subconscious, I know the answer, but I honestly don't understand why A-Rod has been singled out the way he has been. I'm not saying poor A-Rod. He has enough money that his great-grandchildren can go to law school, and smart Yankee fans realize how great he was. Stupid Yankee fans were like, nah, he's not Jeter. Yeah, he was better. Sorry. People saying he's Jeter the greatest shortstop of all time. He was the best shortstop on his own infield. And that's not to disparage Jeter, who's one of the 10 greatest Yankees of all time. You might even put him top 5 for his whole career. The reason I don't put A-Rod top 5 Yankee of all time, because he didn't spend his whole career there, and some of his best years were when he was playing for Seattle and for the Texas Rangers. I digress. Sully 7 thinks I know. And then I reiterate, you knew the answer before you even asked. No, I don't. It's never made sense to me. He's not in the Hall of Fame. An inner circle Hall of Famer. Okay, you want to say he took PEDs, then you bring him back to a Carlos Beltran level Hall of Famer. That's still a freaking Hall of Famer. You know, he was a jerk. Yeah, like Jeff Kent was a Boy Scout. Was there anyone who was more reviled in clubhouses and seemed like a genuine jerk with a chip on his shoulder than Jeff Kent, who was an okay power hitter before coming to the Bay Area, teammates with a lot of the right people, and suddenly becomes a Hall of Fame slugger? I'm not saying anything. I'm just stating timelines here. That was the era. That was the era that was happening there, which means we have to start grading some of these PED users. I'm not calling Jeff Kent a PED user. I'm just saying the circumstance was, so why is A-Rod getting singled out? Is it I used to just label it as because he was not likable. But then we have Kent. Now, granted, Kent wasn't voted in by the writers. He was voted in by a committee. And who knows, by the time A-Rod starts floating around some of these committees, maybe, just maybe, he will find his way in. But no, I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me. It seems borderline personal. And without trying to make A-Rod into a martyr, which is a physical possibility, I keep thinking about that great line from the movie All the President's Men, where they said, you haven't just lost Halderman, you made people feel sorry for him. I didn't think that was possible. I think it was possible to feel sorry for Alex Rodriguez, but do you know what? I kind of sort of do. He's a Hall of Famer. His number, he's the only Yankee whose number isn't retired. My God, I think they retired Randy Velarde's number. And 13 is still available? Good Lord, some of the people who's no offense, Jorge Posada, but are you you're in the inner circle of Yankee retired numbers, but not A-Rods? What are we doing here? But someone let me know. Don't assume I know, because I legitimately don't. This is not hyperbole. This is not me dancing around something. I don't understand why A-Rod's not in. It makes zero sense to me. And I wanted to get this out before we start playing games in the World Baseball Classic. Someone let me know. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online to handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right on the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. Now, for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. TurboTax. All right, let's just do a couple of viewer questions we had there. Please let me know your thoughts. I was talking a little bit about. Actually, I want to just quickly read these two. I was talking about: is it better to have a stretch of contention without a World Series title along the year, like a decade of winning but no title, or to have that one title in that window of opportunity? Justin Miner 5373, lifelong Brewers fan. I remember the lean years of the 90s and the early 2000s. Winning 90 plus games a year is great, but I also want a pennant and just a shot at the title. Yeah, it's interesting. The Brewers have been very good for the better part of a decade now. And winning that one title would do so much to sort of, I hate to say justify it, but sort of be that last bit on the cake there. Now, this one is from Greg Quintero. Says, if you give me the option of the Angels winning 90 a season for a decade or one World Series rings, a bunch of last place finishes in the same decade, give me the ring every day. Yeah, and it's interesting that Greg is an Angel fan because they went on a fantastic run between 2002 and 2009, where they're regularly in the postseason, and that whole run they had an added bit of, I guess, house money because they won the World Series in 2002. So all those division titles, 2004, 2005, 2007, 2008, and 2009, a couple other trips to the ALCS along the way, all felt like they were frosting on the proverbial cake of the World Series title that was won in 2002. But yeah, give you that ring. I mean, the Royals are really the Royals and the Rangers are kind of the test, the canary in the coal mine for this particular thought process. In the 2010s, the Royals did not contend that often, but they had back-to-back pennants and won a World Series for their trouble. And the Texas Rangers, who were regular participant in the postseason between 2010 and 2016, but and they would have won a World Series if Nelson Cruz had timed his leap a little better. Did not have a great run recently. They had 1 year where they made the postseason and they won it all. So I guess the question, I got to throw that to Ranger fans. Which decade do you have better? Which decade felt better? Those times to the playoffs, including a couple trips to the World Series, but no ring? Or that strange blip in the middle of the 2020s where they won it all? I think I know the answer. Sully accused me of knowing the answer. Some more comments are coming in. Let's see. Well, my mom's watching and says the picture and sound are out of sync. Well, that's because I have a special filter on that says this is going to be a Italian Hercules film. So just let me know if I'm having a picture sound issue. Let me know, or if that's my mom's computer. But M. Klotz 1426 says if A-Rod finally gets in, the floodgates will then open. Bonds and Clemens. It might be more difficult than you think for that because of the veterans committees, the low voter, the low amount of ballots that went for Bonds and Clemens may prevent them from getting on some ballots later. I don't understand how the rules are. Bonds and Clemens are a whole other story. But A-Rod is still on the writer's ballot and could just be voted in the old-fashioned way. So we'll see what happens. Absolutely see what happens. But guess what? We're going to actually have some baseball to talk about very soon, and I really can't wait. And we're going to have the World Baseball Classic, which I am really excited about. I kind of wish the World Baseball Classic was happening in 2027, because if there was a lockout, I'd want to see something. If there's a lockout, I don't know what this might turn into Locked On Korean Baseball. But thanks so much for tuning into Locked On MLB. We're going to be. I am going to bring up a couple other topics. There are things happening with the Tampa Bay Stadium that may be interesting to go through. And a couple of the things for Black History Month I want to toss out, including some philosophical things that I think about regarding when baseball is segregated. Make sure to subscribe and follow Locked On MLB so you get all the latest episodes. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, whatever they're calling it these days, on Instagram, and join the Everydayer Club that way. And join it by going to lockedonmlb.supercast.com, and you can get ad-free episodes and access to the Discord. And check out the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And before we call it a night, let's do the trivia question. And this is regarding someone who is born on this day. Sir Francis Drake, the second man to circumnavigate the globe, he did so in the 17th century, is reportedly an ancestor to what former batting champ and World Series champion third baseman? I'll give you a hint. It's not Alex Rodriguez, but Sir Francis Drake, second man to circumnavigate the globe, is reportedly an ancestor to what former batting champion and World Series champion third baseman? That is a trivia question. Put it down here before. All right. Let's wrap this up, shall we? Talking about Carlos Beltran, who belongs in the Hall of Fame, and Alex Rodriguez, who should join him. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.